Hey everyone, this is Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and now it's time for my long-awaited episode 64 of Album of the Day, which I know I haven't done this in a while because, it's lately, busy life, and lately I've developed a pretty huge interest in movies, but, I just got inspired and decided I wanted to do another review, so here I am talking about a record that was released by a band that I really like, that I've reviewed before, the Alabama-based southern rock group known as Drive-By Truckers. Earlier this year I reviewed their most recent album, English Oceans. It came out in March of 2014, but I decided to do another throwback and talk about a classic album of theirs that I really like. And the record is called Southern Rock Opera. This is the Drive-By Truckers' third full-length studio record, originally released on Soul Dump Records. And then Lost Highway acquired the rights to the album and then, re-released it, just so they could make it a more national release. And it's a double album, which show you the inside here. There's some liner notes, pictures of the band, and then thank yous and stuff. And there's a little booklet in here, which of course has introductions to both acts. And there's the lyrics, of course. Gotta have that. And then, of course, some illustrations by Wes Freed, who's done the artwork for pretty much like a majority of Drive-By Truckers records. Some very nice artwork on here. And that's the packaging for Southern Rock Opera. So there are definitely plenty of tracks on here that I want to talk about because a lot of them have definitely some good, dirty Southern rock attitude and some very interesting, sometimes dark and sometimes disturbing stories, which is pretty much what the band is pretty much devoted to doing. So it opens with the song, or not really song, but rather intro, Days of Graduation, which basically talks about, I think it's like a Lynyrd Skynyrd story or something. Like it's told from the point of view of a band member who was left at a party when one of his friends and the protagonist's girlfriend go on a dangerous joyride, and then the guy in the car dies in the car, and then the story was told that the protagonist's graduation ceremony and everyone says that the Parademics could hear Freebird playing on the stereo. Basically, a little monologue to basically, start the record, which eventually leads into the second song, Ronnie and Neil, which talks a little bit about how this was a time when, there were a bunch of political problems going on, with racism and stuff like that. And there were a bunch of different Alabama-based artists recording, songs at that time of just horrible stuff going on in the South. Talks about how, basically kind of the relationship musically between Lynyrd Skynyrd and Neil Young, and the song has like one of my favorite lines on this whole record, which is rock stars today ain't half as real, which is true because rock stars didn't really have the same attitude and the same passion that Ronnie Van Zant and Neil Young had. So it's sort of a song, sort of a tribute to those two musical legends and how we still need them both around, even though Ronnie Van Zant isn't around anymore. The third track on here is 72, This Highway's Mean, which talks about, around this time when Lynyrd Skynyrd were in their heyday, pretty much some of these southern rock bands had to go through the rather harrowing 72 highway way. That's where it's really blazing hot and and there's no in between and stuff, so you don't really know where you're going pretty much. It's literally that, like the highway's literally that terrible pretty much. And then following that is Dead, Drunk, and Naked, which, the protagonist talks about during his childhood, he made the mistake of sniffing a lot of glue, and then he got sent to rehab, and then eventually as he got older, he developed kind of a better behaved, kind of became a better behaved man after just, doing all those horrible things during his childhood. Like Patterson Hood describes, the song as how this song pretty much tells how he was kind of the poster boy for why you shouldn't sniff glue in junior high school. The song Guitar Man Upstairs talks about how, I don't know if it was Mike Cooley's, father, uncle, or grandfather or whatever, but this song was told from the point of view of one of Cooley's family members, that when Cooley was young and starting to play guitar, his he would call the cops because the sound of a guitar that was loud, even acoustic guitar in the morning, made this adversary call the cops, which I think is kind of crazy, because loud noise isn't such a big deal, and it made sense that Cooley decided to tell the song from his adversary's point of view, basically a man seeing, basically just frustrated at, and just fed up with all the with all the bad stuff going on in the world, with violence and stuff like that. He talks about how he's very bored and he's seen good times come and go and he's seen bad times drag on, and then eventually he kind of complains about living with punks and freaks, as Mike Cooley refers it to in the lyrics. The song Birmingham sort of talks about how Patterson Hood grew up in Birmingham, and talks a little bit about a friend that he knew back then who was and the last thing he said was Stanley is the character that I'm talking about. The last thing Stanley said to him before he was shot and killed was I don't think it was worth it. And basically he talks about growing up in Birmingham and all that stuff. And there's and another interesting moment on this record would have to be the track the Three Great Alabama Icons, which would be George Wallace, Bear Bryant, and Ronnie Van Zant. So at first it talks about Ronnie Van Zant a little bit, the lead vocalist, the original lead vocalist of Lynyrd Skynyrd, then it talks about the famous Alabama football player Bear Bryant, which Patterson Hood talks about how he grew up hating football. And then it talks a little bit about George Wallace and how, for a president, he was pretty much he wasn't the greatest guy of all. Like, mostly because, it was really the racism, thing that really, kind of was, his problem pretty much. So it makes sense that, right after this song is the track Wallace, which is basically, it's set in hell, told from the devil's point of view. So it totally made sense since Wallace did a bunch of, awful things that kind of, that kind of ruined him, that kind of ruined him personally a little bit. So a little bit of that is being talked about in the song, which, it does have, it's like a combination of, like, loud, dirty southern rock with, like, soul going on in this track. And then the track Moved features Rob Malone singing the lead vocal and him penning the lyrics. It's like this really, it's this real lonely and pretty dark song with Rob Malone's pretty soul, like Muscle Shoals, like soul music-esque kind of vocal. And it's like just him and a guitar, but it kind of needed to be just those few things. And it had a real lonely feel, which had the same feel as the room that the band recorded this whole record in. Because, of course they said it was fun to write, but it was kind of a, miserable time making it. But somehow, no matter how down they felt, they still managed to put out what I think is one of the best records they've ever done. Of course, alongside, records like The Dirty South and whatnot. Which The Dirty South's definitely one of my all-time favorite records, for sure. The Jason Isbell tracks on that record are just great. It just, too, includes tracks like Let There Be Rock, which is kind of a song, talking about how, Patterson Hood, it basically talks about how, partying all the time and going to shows when Patterson was in high school kind of kept him from, going off the deep end and stuff like that. So you can see how Patterson Hood's, high school days were pretty twisted, it talks about how he had a ticket for a Lynyrd Skynyrd concert, and how he, and how going to rock concerts all the time kind of put him through kind of the whole, drug and alcohol thing and, all that stuff, and how, the dangers of life as, coming, the dangers of being a rock and roll lover is that, rock and roll can kind of put you through drugs and all the, awful stuff that you want to stay away from. And a majority of Disc 2 talks about the horrible plane crash that Lynyrd Skynyrd were, not only did the band break up, but some band members were killed in the incident. And the song Cassie's Brother, does talk about a little bit about how they let Steve Gaines sit in with a band pretty much as a favor to Cassie. And you notice how, Cassie Gaines, the late great Cassie Gaines, is voiced by Kelly Hogan in the song, which of course, if you know about artists like Nico Case or Drive By Truckers, then I'm pretty sure you know who Kelly Hogan is, as she's such a great singer. has a really beautiful voice. And once again, you have Rob Malone doing the lead vocal on this one. And like the only song on this record actually about Lynyrd Skynyrd is the track "Life in the Factory," and then the song "Shut Up and Get on the Plane" kind of like I think it talks a little bit about the plane crash. Like I think it kind of references it a little bit, you know, and then the closer, "Angels and Fuselage," like. Basically, it's told from like a Lynyrd Skynyrd band member's point of view, as well as told from Cassie Gaines's point of view, since Kelly Hogan sings backup vocals on the song, doing the voice of Cassie, and basically it talks about kind of the horror of something awful about to happen. Like it's kind of a song that's kind of a basically talking about how things can be just horribly unpredictable, especially if you're near death, like and anticipation for a plane crash is very scary. So like the song so this song like lyrically is pretty terrifying, no matter how you look at it, pretty much. This record overall just, very good Southern rock record. Like, the lyrics on it are very good. Like, the guitar riffs definitely have some good, like, high energy kind of, attitude to them. Like this album sort of has the attitude and sort of the grit and angst that other records other music today just doesn't have. I mean, this was released at a time where Southern rock was kind of in its heyday back in the early 2000s, but now it's kind of faded a little bit. Even though Alabama Shakes are one popular group keeping the Southern rock attitude thing, alive, and I reviewed their latest album, Sound and Color, which I still think to this day is still one of the best records of 2015, which I still need to listen to more 2015 music. Like, I'm interested in checking out the new Beach House record, Depression Cherry. Like, I heard the lead single on that record, Sparks, and really liked it. And then I also want to check out the most recent album by a band that I listened to a little bit of called Battles, called Lottie Dottie. So those are a couple of records that I'm pretty interested in, checking out from this year. The vocals on this. And the vocals on Southern Rock Opera definitely do have that kind of, attitude as well. Like Rob Malone's vocals on this record are really good. This is kind of a record that I think tributes Lynyrd Skynyrd in the most smart and very clever and very intelligent, in the most intelligent way, possible, and you can tell the band has done a lot of research to make sure that these lyrics about actual events were accurate, because they're aiming for accuracy here, which if you're gonna tribute a record to a band, make sure your lyrics are accurate if you're not just doing covers like some people are. So yeah, I'm gonna give Southern Rock Opera a 9 out of 10. I mean this record is near perfect pretty much. So that's it for this review of Drive By Truckers 2001 album. Fantastic record, Southern Rock Opera. And I'll see you for episode 65.